Hi. Oh. Technical difficulties, I apologize. Let me see. Hi, I'm Gavin. I use he, him pronouns, and I am the Community Engagement Associate at New York Theater Workshop. And I am so excited to welcome you to our spotlight on Black acting methods. We're broadcasting this talk from Zoom and simultaneously live streaming on Facebook Live. Hello. We're so happy to have you all here. New York Theater Workshop has long sought to create art that interrogates our past as a way of understanding the present and shining light toward the future. To that end, we are taking the time to recognize the history of the land we occupy in the East Village. And as we find ourselves in the digital space, we'd like to embrace this opportunity to acknowledge the many native lands from which we're all tuning in. So we are posting right now a link in the chat where you can learn about the tribal history of the land on which you are situated. We invite everyone to take a moment, input your address into the website, and post in the chat the native land from which you are joining us. New York Theater Workshop is situated on the island of Manhattan, and we acknowledge the island as the traditional lands of the Munsee Lenape, the Canarsie, the Unkachug, the Matennekok, the Shinnecock, the Regawank, and the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. Thank you. This panel is part of New York Theater Workshop's virtual programming series, which is all free and available to the entire New York Theater Workshop community, which includes you. So if you are in a position to do so, we hope you would consider making a donation in honor of this conversation to Hattiloo Theater in Memphis, Tennessee, Black Acting Methods Studio, and also to New York Theater Workshop to support ongoing programming. Now, just a little bit about Hattiloo Theater. Founded in Memphis, Tennessee in 2006, Hattiloo Theater is the only freestanding Black repertory theater in 5 surrounding states in the Mid-South. Hattiloo enhances the audience's appreciation for the diversity and nuances of Black theater and provides opportunities for otherwise underutilized local actors and directors to develop their craft. So please consider donating to Hattiloo Theater, and you will find links to donate to the 3 organizations in the chat on Zoom and in the comments on Facebook Live. And you could also donate to NYTW at any time throughout this live stream using the Facebook stars, and you can access this feature by clicking the star icon in the chat. Now, this conversation will last around an hour, and we'll open it up for Q&A for the last 20 to 15 minutes. And when we get to the Q&A portion, just feel free to share your questions for the panelists via the Q&A feature on Zoom or comment on Facebook Live. And we'll do our best to get all of the questions that we can in the time that we have. Before we start and I introduce our esteemed panelists and moderator, I just wanted to give a special thanks to Professor Judy Abalali, who introduced me to Black acting methods while in graduate school. And a special thanks to artist, educator, and NYTW usual suspect Talvin Wilkes, who personally connected me to our panelists today. The first person I would like to introduce to our Zoom room is Dr. Sherelle D Luquette, and she is the founding executive director of the Black Acting Methods Studio and lead editor of the award-winning best-selling book, Black Acting Methods, Critical Approaches. She serves on the Independent Equity Committee at the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama at the University of Cincinnati. Luquette is director of the Helen Weinberger Center of Drama and Playwriting and Drama and Performance Studies professor in the departments of English and Comparative Literature, Africana Studies, and Women, Gender, Sexuality Studies. She is also faculty collaborator with the esteemed College Conservatory of Music. Dr. Luquette, please feel free to come into the Zoom room. Hi, welcome.
Hello, Gavin. Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course. Next, I would like to introduce Dr. Tia M Shaffer. Dr. Shaffer is a playwright and director, is an artistic associate with the Black Acting Methods Studio, and co-editor of the award-winning best-selling book, Black Acting Methods, Critical Approaches. She is also the former theater director and fine arts chair at South Atlanta High School and former director for for Youth and Children's Ministries at Zion Hill Baptist Church in Atlanta, Georgia. Shaffer holds a BA in journalism from Georgia State University, theater educator certification from Columbus State University, Master of Arts in Christian Education from the Interdenominational Theological Center Morehouse School of Religion, and a doctorate in education and educational leadership from Liberty University. In 2012, Shaffer was awarded a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts to study the music, culture, and people of the Mississippi Delta. Dr. Shaffer, welcome to the Zoom room. There we go. Oh.
Hi.
Hi, Dr. Shaffer. We have you right here.
Thank you for the welcome.
Of course. And last but not least, Professor Marcus D. Harvey. Marcus D. Harvey is an award-winning actor, writer, singer, director, and educator. He holds his MFA in acting from Brooklyn College, MA in dramatic writing for social change from NYU, and dual undergraduate degrees in dramatic arts and performance studies from UNC Chapel Hill. Marcus is the head of acting for Waterwell's Drama at Professional Performing Arts School. He is also a faculty member at Montclair State University and New Jersey City University, where he teaches acting. And also he is a beloved New York Theater Workshop teaching artist. So Marcus, please come on.
Hello.
Awesome. Hello. And now at this point, I will leave you three to enjoy a conversation. Thank you so much.
Great. Are we all met? Dr. Shaffer.
Yes.
We good over there? We good over there? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Great. So I guess let's just dive into this conversation. How did the two of you meet, and how did this book come about?
Okay, I'll start. How did we meet and how did the book come about? I'm going to try not to talk long, but Tia, jump in. Tia and I actually both attended Performing Arts High School in Southwest Atlanta, Tri-Cities High School for the Visual and Performing Arts. We both studied under Freddie Hendricks, which is a strong impetus for the work that we do today. I was actually a grade ahead of Tia. And so I think we respected one another's talents, but we became friends later, probably a little later on after undergrad, somewhere in there. Tia is humble, but let me tell you, Marcus, she can blow. She can change her face.
She's a humble brag. She don't want to talk about it. Got it.
So I think the last thing I'll say is that I was someone, because I could not sing. Our drama teacher, he liked singers. I was someone who was always either not in the show or in the ensemble, and Tia was always a lead. She was in Dreamgirls. She played Tamoon and Once on This Island.
Okay.
High notes.
You don't do oohs and ahs. You don't do oohs and ahs, Tia, huh?
Well, Sherelle, I'll chime in. No, she was not, necessarily a lead singer, but Sherelle, I wanted to say to you that I noticed your talent way back in high school. We had an opportunity where the students got a chance to write and direct their own comedy skits, like short sketches. And I remember Sherelle writing this hilarious skit and directing it. And it was one of the best pieces in the whole show. And so Sherelle, I do remember your talent.
Thank you.
Even as far back then, you were a director back then.
Thank you.
So when you all thought about, like, who had the idea first, and who said to who first, we need to create this book, right, to document Blackness in acting, right? So which of you, was it over a glass of wine? Was it over somebody's boyfriend or significant other had broke up with them? You I'm gonna do this thing. What was the moment that this became the thing?
See you.
Well, Marcus, I can chime in here and start that answer. So it definitely was Sherelle, and Black acting methods is really a force to be reckoned with. And it's something that was a dream of hers, and she's a great visionary. So she was the one that came to me, and I happily obliged because I really do believe in the work that we're doing with Black acting methods. So I just wanted to put it out there that Sherelle D Luquette is our visionary, and I'll let her talk more about it.
Tia is so generous. Thank you, Tia. You know what? That is a great question. And I'm really, for me, I see it a little bit more, yes, I am a visionary. I own that. But I want to say that Tia and I both began to burgeon as scholars. So, you know, we were in high school, everybody's acting. Then a couple started directing, right? And people kind of branch off. But who was really interested in education was Tia and me. Not that there weren't any others, but Tia and me. And so we continued to stay in contact in college. We did a couple of shows together where Tia was a performer and I was the director, and we continued our educations. And then we kind of crossed paths as drama teachers in high school. And so Tia's dissertation was about Tri-Cities High School and how drama influenced and impacted a lot of those students' lives at Tri-Cities and along with Freddie Hendrix. And so I was familiar with her work. And my work was primarily on Freddie Hendrix and the Freddie Hendrix Youth Ensemble of Atlanta. Okay. So I love when I see talent. Let me just say that when I see talent and I know that folks are talented, I love to ask them to join me, to partner, you know, and this book, you know, this book is bigger than me. It's bigger than us. I mean, just the impact has just been overwhelming, unexpected. We knew it was amazing, but I'm trying to nail down when I asked Tia, but I think we were just in conversation a lot. Like you said, talking about boys, talking about men, you know what I mean? Talking about cool stuff. And I just kept being like, we got to do this book. We have to do this book. And it was after I went to the director's lab. I do remember that, the Lincoln Center director's lab, that very popular lab where the directors come together. And I think I went in 2014. And what is her name? Oh my goodness, she's a theater scholar in Rwanda. It escapes me. But anyway, she did a workshop, and she asked everyone to write to their ancestors. And you know me, I'm an actor too, so I get scared when folks start doing that because I'm like, no, you about to have everybody here crying, you know what I mean, being vulnerable. But I thought it was so interesting that she had those modes of working all the way from Rwanda, and I was just like, there's something here. And so then I got really serious, and I just asked Tia to join me.
Gotcha. And when you all thought about what other collaborators or contributors you wanted for this book, because you got the Daniel Banks and the Rodessa Joneses and the Daphne Secraes and the Kashis and the Justin, like you went and got the who's who out here in these streets doing theater, like for the people. Like, how did you decide on like, these are the people? And Tia, you can jump in, but the truth is, Marcus, is that we did a call for papers, a public call for papers. And I'll even, I'll reveal these little nuggets because we've never said this in public. I remember being at Tia's home and us working on the call for papers and being like, do you think anybody's going to respond? Do you remember that, Tia?
Yeah.
We were like, well, if nobody responds, then we'll just end up doing a book about, Black acting methods, and we'll land on one or two people. We really had that question. And everybody that's in the book, except for the distinguished practitioners, all of the chapter contributors actually responded to the call. Huh. Yeah. And they were like, basically like, oh my God, this is amazing. We've been waiting for this. We've been wondering why no one has done this. And I'm really grateful for them because, like you said, it's a lot of heavy hitters. And Tia and I, we're unknowns, but we had a vision. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to have folks like Aku Kadogo, she originated The Lady in Yellow on Broadway in '76. To have Aku Kadogo trust us with Kadogo Mojo. You know, it's so humbling, and just a wonderful experience. So, and then we kind of, the distinguished practitioners, we kind of targeted a couple of people that we wanted in there, and then maybe a couple of people too who couldn't do a chapter, but we still wanted their voices. Folks whose work I saw, like Shirley Jo Finney, who's done a lot of Terrell Alvin McCraney. I really wanted her in the book, and I actually got her in the Terrell Alvin McCraney book as well. But Tia, if you wanted to speak to that as well. Yeah.
Something that you said really hit me, which was there was doubt about whether or not people would respond. And the beautiful thing every time, and I think this goes for even everyone else out there that's listening today, is if you have been inspired to do something, go ahead and say your prayers, put it out in the universe, and organically those people who are on the same wavelength with you and who believe in what you're doing, you're going to attract them. So I am so grateful to the universe for bringing these wonderful, talented practitioners, directors, writers to this project. And it's divine. It's a divine order. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. So I wanna pivot, not away from it, but I wanna pivot to, like, we went from this book, right? And then we started this studio. So how did the studio come about?
Yeah.
Because I know you both are arts educators, right? And so that is.
Yep. You know what? It came about naturally. What I will say is that we always had a theater group. So like when we went to Georgia State University, and there was a group, we called ourselves Theoretical, but it was the Black Student Theater Ensemble. I worked with the YWCA and started an Empowered Youth Entertainment. Tia has worked in the churches a lot. And so it was a natural progression. I was at a small college in Pennsylvania. And I felt like the students needed to study it. So it actually started insular. And then I started getting requests for lectures and workshops outside of the college. And by the time I worked with the students for about a year, by the time the year was up, I realized that, oh, wait, this is something that's actually not a student organization. This is an organization with professional heavy hitters that delivers, excellence in theater in all types of ways, that we still serve students, but it's not a student organization anymore. But we certainly have brought some of our students along as ambassadors, and some students who are still waiting to work with us. But it was really, like Tia just said, we really try to stay connected to the universe. That's hard, to spirit. It can be hard sometimes. But a lot of the great things that I've done in life, I don't remember where it started. I just remember that it happened. Yeah.
Okay. So when someone goes to the studio, when you said you started something insular, right? So when people come to the Black Acting Method studio, like, what can they, like, if I was to tell one of my young people that I work with, like, you should go here, what can they expect? Like, what is considered the curriculum? Sorry, I just talked with my hands.
No, it's okay. They can expect a lot of things. One thing that I love about the Black Acting Method Studio is that we have a wonderful team. And the team caters to the whole person. So we're going to cater to you as an actor, the skills that you feel like you need for your auditions and your rehearsals and your career. We have a dance arm. We have a talented dancer who's able to teach. We have people who do music. We have people that deal with your spirit. I'm one of those people dealing in spirituality. We also have a psychologist that is concerned about, okay, so you're Black and you want to be an actor, or you want to be a part of this studio. So we're going to say, how is your mental health? How is your mental health impacted when you're out in the world where people may not always accept you for who you are? So it's a holistic type of approach that we have. We're catering to mind, body, soul, spirit, every single part of you. And then I'm sure Dr. Luquette will get into some more specifics about the curriculum.
Yeah, that was a great start. Something, so the studio is rooted in Afrocentricity. And if you claim that you have a Black acting methodology, that's actually a field. It has a definition. And that means that you're rooting your work in Afrocentricity. And what Afrocentricity does, Marcus, and I'm sure you know, but I'll say it.
You're talking to the people that out in the world.
Yeah, it centers the Black actor. So what that means is that the studio is not anti-racism. We don't even concern ourselves with that as much as we can. Now, we know there's a lived experience of Blackness, right? And of course, a lot of people come to the studio who are broken, who are damaged, who are hurt, and they are also artists, you know, who love art and they're trying to figure it all out. So we have to deal with whiteness and white supremacy, but we don't center whiteness, we center Blackness. And what that means is that everything we do is rooted in Black culture, Black thought, and Black theory. We are here, you know, Tia always describes it as a Wakanda. That's what it is. It's a Wakanda. So and what that means is you won't find us in there talking about, you know, our work does have a lot of activism in it, but if you want, you know, a lot of times you hear Black actors talk about like, I'm always doing these types of roles and I have other things I want to talk about, you know? And so this is a space where you can talk about all of those things and nobody's pigeonholing you into simply doing one thing or something that we always see on TV, like stereotypes. The methodology, the acting methodology that we use is called the Luquette Paradigm. My name, y'all, I'm going through let me tell y'all, a name change is coming, but it is, and I've been saying this, a name change is coming, y'all. So just get ready for it. But I'm using Luquette now because that is actually the right pronunciation of the name. The E was just dropped, but it's Luquette. So the Luquette Paradigm is very Black, and that's the acronym that we use. And that means that you will see building, a lot of building, which means conversation. You will see a lot of love of self, pushing to love. You will see accountability. You will see action. You will see community. And you will also see one of the most important cornerstones of the Black Acting Method Studio, and that is knowledge. We are knowledgeable. We believe in the books. We believe in the research. You know, when we get our building, we're gonna have a library, and not a little small library, but a library of all of these writings from Black folk around the world. You know, just everything. Even I would say the ones who have critiques about Afrocentricity. The important part is to center Black thought and Black theory, and what have folks who've had a Black experience globally and nationally, what have they talked about? So we get into that knowledge, you know, because a lot of us need to be re-educated. And Tia and I, we're lifelong learners. We love learning. So knowledge is really important as well in the studio.
One of the things
go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So with the knowledge piece, the K, it's amazing how so many of us go through theater education and we never knew that theater started in ancient Africa, ancient Egypt. So there's a legacy of Black acting that has been hidden, that has been stolen, that has been suppressed. And so one of the things I love about the studio is that it's going to give Black actors and also other people who want to be a part of this experience a good frame of reference to say, hey, there's so much more to theater than we ever knew. And it's just a wonderful learning experience, and it's changing the face of theater history as we know it. So look for BAM to change the history books of what we know about theater and the origins of theater.
That's right.
So one of the things that I appreciate about what you said was about how, and I'm paraphrasing here, it seems like we created a space for every Black voice to be welcomed, and not all Black voices in the space have to agree.
Correct.
Right? We feel like sometimes when there's a Black story being told, that like it's the Black story for all Black people. And what often I say is, no, it's the Black story of that Black writer, based on that experience that they're putting on stage, right? And so I think like that is important, right? To have a space where all this diverse and Blackness can come, and we can retrain the full body and the full human experience, right? Because that is like what we need to do.
Yeah.
And like one of the things I often talk about in where I teach is like, we need to talk about the mental health of our actors. Like we need to talk, like I spend the first year of the program reprogramming particularly young girls how to think about themselves, right? Because they have been, if they're not a zero, they're not small enough, right? Like it's like, no, own your full plus size 12, size 14 wearing self, because there is room for you at the table, right? And it seems like that is sort of kind of the world that you all are looking at. So you said you're gonna have a studio. Let's talk more about this. Where is the studio?
We have some exciting things coming up. So here's the thing. The studio is virtual. It travels with us. It's a mobile studio, and it always has been before COVID. You know, when I was at my college, it was kind of located at the college, but it's a virtual location. One day we'll have probably in Atlanta, or Cincinnati, and maybe several locations, right? Several locations. We'll have a brick and mortar, but what we're discovering too, Marcus, is that Black people are continuing to spread out geographically. And many of them are in programs. Let's talk about the ones who are in undergrad and graduate school. Many of them are in programs in Alaska. I'm being kind of funny, but you know, in Alaska, in Australia, in Zimbabwe. And how do we reach all of them? So before COVID, we actually were always planning an online university. And then COVID hit, and then it just sped everything up. Literally everybody, do you know what I mean? We were like, oh my God, like we're working on it, you know? But we are mobile. So what that means is that we get flown out places. People bring us into where they are. And then we are also virtual. And that is helpful, particularly because of, again, the Black experience and the fact that we're not just in Atlanta and Houston and DC anymore. We're and I'm talking about in the US, you know what I mean? We're everywhere now. We're everywhere. And it's hard, even if we had a brick and mortar building, those students and those actors would not necessarily be able to get to us the way that they can get to us online and with the online university. Yeah.
Gotcha. If there was Black Acting Methods Volume 2, what do you think you would want to see in Volume 2?
Off the top of my head, because I've thought about this, we talk about this all the time. What would be in a Volume 2? I felt like the contributors that we had were wonderful contributors. And if we were able to find all of these people who are experiencing different methodologies and techniques and working with their students and their theater companies, what more is there? How many more people are there that had methodologies that we did not capture the first time around? So I see one of the things we can do is just to welcome more voices to the table.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would add too, you know, it's interesting because the book, you know, is global. I saw somebody post from Pretoria, South Africa, and I was all excited, you know, but we're getting a lot of that now. And Black Acting Methods is very much rooted in a Black American experience. And I hear you getting at, you know, we don't essentialize it, but it is rooted in a Black American experience. And so I would say I'm curious to see what might happen if we open up that global Blackness, because there are folks in the book who are from, I believe, the West Indies, right? Everybody was not necessarily born in America, so it's there. But I'm curious to connect with more Black people globally to kind of see what that would look like, you know. And you know, let's just be real, Black folks outside of the US, They don't be understanding racism. We be trying to tell them, and then they get here. We do. We be trying to tell them, and they be like, y'all so sensitive. Y'all African Americans so sensitive. Then they get hit upside the head, right? Or Trump gets elected, and people are trying to elect Trump again. Folks get shot, and then we're like, okay, so what did you say about us and our sensitivity? You know,
we tried to tell you.
We tried to tell you was Black. So I would love to have that that trans continental conversation, you know, and that may evolve. We're going to hold a conference, you know, that may happen in a conference setting, but just kind of talk about what's going on with Blackness around the world.
Yeah, that's because I have conversations with my Black playwright actor friends in the UK, and it's very like, it's very different, right? It is very different how we engage with it. And I think they've become more aware of race based on talking to me in the US, right? Like when I worked there, it was a very different, like, how do I fit into this world, right? Because in America, I'm Black. I'm not, you know, like I'm Black first, right? That's what they see, right? So it's like, how do they understand that? And also what kind of, I would be intrigued, like if you went to the continent, what kind of spirituality will they attach to the arts, right? Like how will that help or enlighten us on like, because for me, Black art is a spiritual experience, right? Like it is how we survived all the years of oppression, right? Like we survived by singing the hymnals. We survived by becoming a griot, right? Telling our stories. Like that's how we kept things away from them, right? And then they wanted to try to come in and take it. And it's like, nah, we still got stuff you can't take.
Yeah. That's right.
It's ours, right?
That's right. And you look, I was just going to say briefly, you know, libations are really big, and we do libations. Tia leads libations in the studio. And that specifically is connected to the very large Akan ethnic group in the very large continent of Africa, specifically the Ashanti. They have something called the Adeyi Festival, where they rest and honor the ancestors. So you see that those libations, that ancestral world spirituality, you really see that on the continent, you know. But yeah, did you want to add, Tia?
Yeah, so, you know, definitely BAM certainly centers the Black American aesthetic and performance. But you can't separate that aesthetic from Africa. You know, that's our root. And so that's where we come from. So there's really no separation. So my prediction is that if we went and did something globally and went to Africa, you would probably see a lot of the same practices and traditions, maybe in different forms, but you would see a lot of crossover. We're all connected. We all have that epic memory of our ancestors and where we came from. There is no separation in the circle of life. Right, yeah. It reminds me, like, I spent some time in Panama, and you were talking about the libation and the ancestral. There's a woman named Dr. Renee Alexander Kraft.
Yes.
She studies the Black Christ Festival. Okay. Right? And like, I went there as an artist in residence, and it was like, it was such a sense of community that I was like, oh, this is like being in North Carolina on my grandmother's back porch. Yes. They just speak in Spanish. I don't know what they're saying, but they just speak in Spanish to me, right? Yep. It's like, it was, and they were just as dark as me or darker, and we just had a good time. What is your, because you've answered just about all my questions. How do you see your work in the larger history of Black theater history and discourse? Whew, that's a heavy question. So I can start. Something slipped out of my mouth the other day. We were talking about another project that BAM has coming out that I don't know if it's gonna be announced, but I said that BAM is changing the face of 21st century theater. The face of theater
you had Black people doing amazing things in different pockets that people didn't necessarily know about. So again, if you go back to 2000 BC, the ancient Egyptians were performing passion plays, which is the story of the Christ, except they were the African deities, Horus, Osiris, Isis. But these were plays being done way back, before Christ, BC. And so throughout time, Black people have been doing theater, but as I said, in little pockets and people not knowing about it and not knowing how we are, and we have theory and we're scholars and we're writers and we're playwrights and we're dancers and we're singers. We're all of that. So I see BAM being that field of study that was mentioned a while ago that brings all of that together. BAM is putting out books that are going to be around for the next 1,000 years if we don't burn up the earth. I hope one day these recordings will be up on a screen when we change how we watch TV, and you will be able to watch this talk that we had,
Yeah.
But yeah, we're changing the face of theater. That's the bottom line. Sherelle, I don't know if you wanted to chime in.
Yeah, that's a heavy question. I want to make sure I'm doing my ancestors proud. We stand on some mighty shoulders, and Tia talks about the pockets. I think the special thing about the pockets is that the pockets were in certain areas, like in Greenwich Village, Atlanta, some places in LA, they were in certain areas, and the Black folk, because we were so concentrated in those areas, we did know about it in those pockets. But now again, geographically, we've spread out and it's harder. And now Black folk are trying to figure out, as Tia said, where are those pockets? And we don't have we have pockets, but then we got like, what's not a pocket? Then we got like little, I don't know. I was trying to think of something smaller than a pocket.
Yeah, I know.
But you know what I mean? But we don't have those concentrated pockets in all areas, but Black folks are now becoming in all areas. And so what I asked myself was, I really looked to Barbara Ann Teer's work, really interested in Vinapani Chawla's work. I said, what did my ancestors not have that I have at my disposal? Because they were able to do a lot. And the only thing I came up with, other than being myself, is that we have the internet. You know what I mean? They didn't have technology. They didn't have this advanced technology where we can do what we're doing now. And so that's kind of how I lead in certain ways, is like, well, they were able to do so much with what we say so little. So what do we have now because of their sacrifices that we can really build upon? So I'm just happy to be in the lineage. I didn't know I was getting the lineage, but I'm just happy to be in the lineage, and I want my ancestors to say job well done.
Yes.
I love that. I ain't trying to die no time soon, but I love that when people say, when Black folks have passed on to the next realm, they'll say, job well done, my good and faithful servant. Yes.
So
we're here to serve.
I'm going to transition to a couple of these questions that we have.
Can I shout out my Instagram reel? Let me stop. Because I see people are writing it, but please, if you want to keep in touch with us, it is at Black Acting Methods. We're on Instagram at Black Acting Methods. And I know we're going to do that at the end, but I want to go ahead and keep it.
Go ahead, do it. Here is a question that I didn't think of, but I think it's a really great question. In writing, editing, composing this book and this studio, what is something that you learned about yourself? That's a question from Jordan Smith.
Tia, do you have
What did I learn about myself?
I
Go
think,
ahead.
I think, because I wanted you to go. I think in hindsight, I learned that you really do have everything you need to do what you've been called to do. I feel like looking back at Black acting methods, critical approaches, you would not think it would be the first book from new scholars. You would think that we would write 3 or 4 books before Black acting methods. But it was the first, do you know what I mean? It was the first, this heavy book was the first book. And so I believe that the universe and God and spirit chose the right people. And I'm glad that Tia and I didn't shy away from leading in that way.
I learned about myself in working with Sherelle in this book is that we're like gatekeepers.
Uh-oh.
Tia.
Uh-oh.
We've been given a wonderful opportunity. Yeah.
You froze. We heard gatekeepers. Uh-oh.
Yeah, so yeah, basically that was in without even knowing it to be gatekeepers, young people of this generation that are and the future.
Okay. Someone wants to know, how can you use your text in regards to training? To training the actor?
Yeah, I would say read the book. We are certainly working to get an activity companion out, an exercise companion. What Black acting methods does though is it's a paradigm shift, and it's a lot to chew on. And a lot of times actors want to get on their feet and we tell them to sit down because you believe that Stanislavski started acting theory. Do you know what I mean? We gotta back up for a second. Anybody who has the book, I would say, read the book and see what you get out of it. You don't have to read it from beginning to end. Look at the chapters, see what you gravitate towards. I can tell you that a lot of people gravitate towards the methods of intervention section. That's where Justin Emeka is talking about classical training and how do Black people approach classical training. That's where Clanisha Sibley's talking about how to do an Afrocentric character analysis. So a lot of people gravitate because a lot of Black folks are in those interventionist spaces. But I would say open it. You might go to the words of wisdom first. Open it and just see kind of what resonates with you and how you can work to put it into your training that you're receiving already.
Okay. Here's a question for you, Sherelle. Someone wants to know, can you tell us more about the Luquette? What you say your new name is?
It's Luquette. It's not hard. It's Luquette.
You said you was changing it, so I'm just gonna make sure. That's what you said. She did say she was changing her name. The Luket Paradigm and how it differs from the traditional methods, Myers or Stanislavski, and is it something that you can use in conjunction with these, or does it stand alone?
Great. So if you're connecting methods, you need to be connecting Stanislavski and Meisner to Black acting methods, because that was first. A lot of that stuff, like the circle, improvisation, that was co-opted, okay? So that is also against Afrocentricity to compare the method to Stanislavski and Meisner. It stands on its own. What I will say is that the methods are not in contention, meaning the Luket paradigm is like any other methodology. You go in, like when you go in a Meisner workshop or Stanislavski, or you go to the Stella Adler studio, you do the thing, right? You don't wonder, because they're white, you don't wonder, how am I gonna do this and what is gonna happen? You don't go in thinking like, oh, it's a white world. You just go in to get those tools, right? So in that way, the methodologies in the book are tools to put in your back pocket. You can do all of it. In terms of the Luquette paradigm, there is a lot of what we call devising, creating, because Black actors need to speak. And we really land on that you are all that you need. You know, we can all do some growing, but you are all that you need. And we have to build that core. So we do a lot of core building because, again, we are built on Afrocentricity. But the truth is that a lot of Black folks are tied to white Eurocentric methods, they are confused. And I love these Black students. And I'm so proud of them. They're so brave. I get so many Black students now saying, I don't connect to Black culture and I don't know what to do because I'm being asked to play Black stuff, but I actually grew up around white people. And, you know, the answer is, let's start there. You know, let's start at your core. That's who you grew up around. Let's deal with that and see kind of what happens, you know? So that's my response to that for the most part. When you do the Luket paradigm, we don't privilege the script. And that was the way I was also trained. The script is like, whatever, you know, you are an actor, you are an artist, you are a creator, you need to create your stuff. And not because you might not get work, so you need to learn how to do a solo show. No, you're a creator. You need to create your stuff. Actors run the world. Yeah. So, and you need to learn how to do that. You're not just a robot. Yeah. Did you want to say something, Tia?
Well, in talking about the devising and having the actors themselves to do their own writing, that's so important because we do have an issue of a lot of our stories being told incorrectly or just ignored. And so when you come into a space where somebody says, you know what, what's your name? Where are you from? What are your talents? What do you like to do? What are you concerned about? What's important to you? That's the way that Black acting methods centers and uplifts the actor. We care about who you are as a person and we want you to tell your stories. And that's definitely something that we need more of in theater.
Someone wants to know, I asked so many questions. I'm trying to make sure I'm giving you the right one. They are really interested and committed to learning the BAM method. Can you talk about, are you going to offer at some point certifications from the studio? How can they become like a student teacher or this method, like sort of kind of an apprenticeship, or I don't know, like, are you looking at like branching it into like how more people can teach it and not just the people that come to the studio to receive it? I think that's what they're trying to help you expand, I guess.
Yeah, I think we can try to answer some of it. The Black Acting Method Studio, we are going to roll out some courses, our first round of courses in the spring of 2021. We are that's my pup. We are a studio of excellence and we are working on those courses. Building courses so you can get it asynchronously is not an easy task. And we're working as hard as we can to get that. One of our ambassadors, Frederick Marte, he's an original member of the student group. He's on here right now. Thank you, Frederick. He's actually the first ambassador. We plan to do a lot. And we also plan to stay unique in some ways. And there are a lot of ideas flying around. There are a lot of things that people want us to do. And so we just take it one step at a time and trust our guts and let our instincts lead us. So there are certificate programs coming. There's hip hop theater tools. There's mental health for Black actors. We have an Acting While Black series. We are just working on getting it online. And we have a certificate. One of the first certificates is going to be a level 1 certificate in Black acting methods, just the knowledge of Black acting methods. So you can feel comfortable in a classroom or as a student just talking about it. And not because you Black and you guessing. Do you know what I mean? And that comes with knowing about Stolen Legacy. That comes with knowing about Barbara Ann Teer. That comes with knowing about Vina Panachala, even though she's a South Asian woman. That comes with having your knowledge and knowing. That comes with knowing about Kemet. That comes with almost majoring in Africana studies. You know what I mean?
Right.
It comes with a lot, you know, because it is such a paradigm shift. And it's a beautiful thing that we're doing in the education system, not just in theater, but in other fields as well. You know, people are raising the roof. They are demanding racial diversity. They are tired of learning about dead white men. And we are working to keep up with it. In terms of, and then I'm gonna let you talk, Tia, in terms of being trained in the Luquette Paradigm and being a Black acting method studio teacher, I do believe that that's in the future. Tia and I have been doing this work for over 20 years. Cassie Johnson, who does hip hop theater, she's been doing
Love
it.
Cassie.
Right? Dr. Lassiter, he got a doctorate in psychology. So yes is the answer, and it's gonna take a whole lot. Do you know what I mean? You can't come in and be like, I'm gonna do this in 6 weeks or in 2 summers and I'm gonna have it.
Yeah.
But we are working on a realistic timeline for people who are, we love the fact that people are passionate. And my ultimate goal is for Black Acting Methods to be here after I'm with the ancestors. You know, and so it does need to expand, but we want to make sure we're expanding in the right ways. And, you know, you got to watch folks too. You know, you got to watch folks because they come in and do things.
Everybody in your space don't want to be in your space. They want to take your space up and go somewhere else. But I think this is a good question, I think, to sort of kind of wrap us up, because it's probably going to take you a minute to answer it. What is your advice to Black actors who continually find themselves in spaces where their white caste space often monopolize the theater space, not just by being there, but the overall attitude in the acting space or theater? Do you talk about this in your book? And when you talk when you talk about healing and self-care for the body and mind. So do you talk about this? Is there a section about how to be Black and white spaces, theater spaces in your book? And how do you deal with that in your studio?
I'll answer a part of that question. So in the book, Sherelle and I talk about, of course, our background as Black students in Atlanta, Georgia, with Tri-Cities High School and the Freddie Hendricks Youth Ensemble of Atlanta. And those were wonderful spaces for Black youth like us because everything was centered on us. However, when we got to the university, Georgia State University, we found ourselves on the margins, on the outside, feeling like we were being excluded. Not feeling like we were being excluded. And we could have said, oh, you know, the players, they won't accept us. They're mainly white and they don't really want to accept us into their fold. And so one of the things that we did is what we call an intervention. If you're not being accepted in this particular space, don't try to knock the door down and be accepted by people that do not want to be a part of you. Do your own thing. Create your own art. And so earlier, Sherelle spoke about the Black Student Theater Ensemble. So I'm not trying to say in all cases you need to segregate, but there is a time and a place for you to branch out on your own, for you to do your own thing. So we became our own theater organization. We did our own shows. We revived the theater department at Georgia State University and had sold out shows, which hadn't happened since like the 60s or the 70s. So sometimes you do yourself a disservice by trying so hard to fit into spaces. Go and do your own thing. So hopefully that answers a part of that question.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I agree with everything that Tia said. I would encourage you to learn about Afrocentricity. That's what I can leave you with. There are books on Afrocentricity. It's literally a paradigm shift where you learn to center yourself. What disheartens me as Tia and I and the studio continues to do this work is how I understand that we want equitability, but there seems to be a desire from some Black students to really be included in white spaces and to have their teachers, you know, accept them and to be seen as equal. And you worried about the wrong thing. Right? Because you're centering white people, you're centering their values, you're saying that their values matter and yours, I don't know, you know, do not, or you have the same values because you've never explored your own culture. So, you know, and as Maya Angelou said, you know, believe, when people show you who they are, believe them. What I say now, what has released me a lot is that I don't deal with, you know, liars. I don't deal with fables. And what that simply means is that if somebody tells me you're going to hire some Black people, and then you get a chance to hire and you hire non-Black people, I ain't mad. You just a liar. And so by knowing that you're a liar, how do I move forward? You can move forward better than continuing to stand there and say, but you said you was going to hire Black folks. You said you was going to do it. Right? It's how we do relationships in life, right? We just be like, oh, okay, so this person is X, Y, and Z, right? So you have to what I would say is that I believe that God put all of us on this planet. God did not put Black people on this planet to talk to white people. God did not put Black people on this planet to try to convince other people that there are other humans that look different than you. That is not your calling. And I understand that we are activists. I'm not saying don't be in the good fight. I'm in the good fight. You know what I mean? I'll be out there in the streets as well. I am saying, though, is that is not your only purpose. As Toni Morrison says, what would you do if you were not fighting racism? Lean into that. You know, and that question explodes all Black people's mind, including my own. I'd be like, oh my God, what would it do? You know, what would you do if you weren't fighting racism? So just become more aware of how much energy you're giving that. And maybe that space is not the best space for you. Maybe you need to go to an HBCU. Not that it's perfect, but maybe you need to be around your people, you know? Did you want to say anything, Tia? I know we're wrapping up.
No, that was a word, Dr. Luquette. Okay. That was a word.
It's Luquette.
You told us at the top you was changing your name, how to pronounce it. So we working on it. We working on it.
Fine. Y'all can go back to Luckett. Fine.
We working on it.
I can remember that.
So just one more time, if people want to follow, get updates for Black Acting Methods, it's Black Acting Methods. It's Instagram at Black Acting Methods.
Yep. And the website, yes, on Instagram, and Frederick is putting it there, at Black Acting Methods. And we have a private Facebook group called Black Acting Methods Studio. And there's a website called blackactingmethods.com. And we really work to respond to everybody that emails. We sometimes we can't do things right away, but we really work to respond to everybody that emails. And we want to be there to support the theater community as we figure out equitability, you know, and move forward and everybody act like they got some sense, you know.
Right.
Woo! It's been hard them last 4 years, right, Marcus? Listen, Gavin, you understand what I'm saying? Tia, no, it's been hard. So we trying to come on up out of this and just continue to be in the good fight.
Yes.
Woo. That has been such an inspirational and amazing hour with you all. I want to give a special thank you to Dr. Luquette, Dr. Shaffer, and Professor Harvey for just dropping your knowledge, artistry, and love today. Truly, like what you have shared with us is tokens of love. And that's what I'm hearing from everyone in the who are attending and sending all their thank yous right now in the chat. So thank you for your tokens of love today and your offerings. And I also want to thank my colleagues who are doing the tech in the background, Aaron Malkin and Patrick McDonald. So thank you so much for making sure it's working on Facebook Live and on Zoom. And the
last thing I want to say is I always like to end my teaching with this quote. I'm going to leave it for everyone out in the world. On the other side of fear is a fantastic possibility. Remember that, right? So because I think about fear may have kept them from putting out this book, but they focused on the fantastic possibility of what was possible, right? So focus on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, New York Theater Workshop. This is wonderful. Thank you, Professor Harvey.
You're welcome.
And if you want to learn more about our virtual program and New York Theater Workshop, we're just going to drop some links. And also, please, in honor of this conversation, if you're so moved, please, if you can, donate to Hattiloo Theater. If you can, we know we're in a tough situation, but they're doing important work in the Mid-South. An
And
amazing theater. Oh yes, so
look,
please, yeah.
no, and I was gonna say, and donate to Black Acting Methods.
Yeah.
Too. We got our little donate button up, y'all.
Yeah,
Too,
and we just got that link too, so no
yeah,
worries.
because it's important. We're trying to serve the community, and sometimes you know it's hard. It's certainly hard. So everything is appreciated.
Yeah. So I think this is the time to say goodbye. So everyone watching, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful night.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you all.
Bye.